Right. So I think, as you mentioned, cleantech has had some very good years a few years ago. It's gone down a lot, and now it's actually coming back. I would call it, as we call Web 2.0, I think it's now cleantech 2.0. And it's actually similar in the sense that, what we're seeing as, we discussed a lot about what software is doing, what the internet is doing to reduce the cost, what the democratization happened in the world. I think both of these are actually changing very significantly the cleantech world, specifically the energy world. If you had 10 years ago, you would expect a bill to your home for your energy bill. You didn't know what you're actually consuming. You definitely were not producing any energy, and you didn't have much choice, basically. And I think now, in the last 5 years, this energy is not a very quick thing to change, but it's definitely changing. You definitely have much more options. You have distributed generation that is now happening big time in Europe, and especially in the US, thanks to solar seeding and others. So the real power has now moved from the big utility, which, by the way, are very, very much struggling now. They used to be the powerhouse in the industry. Now they're struggling because they see their margins reduced significantly, and they have to find some other ways to do it. And by the way, in the last couple of years, we've been talking to many of them because they used not to have any innovation or R&D in their companies, and now they're building the facility. They understand they cannot really do R&D, so they're coming to us or to some of our colleagues to really get the innovation out because they understand they have to change in order to be at the pace of the industry. The other thing is democratization. The crowd is really getting the power in a lot of things. I mean, from the fact that you can actually have much more transparent information about your bill, about how you consume things, about the benchmark between different utilities or different types of consumption. Nest, for example, gives a lot of information and improvement in the way you use your energy. So all these trends are actually changing very significantly. And we at Terra, actually, we started in 2007, 2008, which was pretty much the top of the wave in terms of cleantech, but we always took an approach of being extremely capital efficient. So we didn't have that many issues in our portfolio as some of the US or other funds had, and now we're taking an even stronger approach on that. We're using really the strength of Israel, which is the ITC mold, or how to basically improve any process we can improve, and bringing it to the cleantech arena. So we're really trying to invest more and more in companies that relatively with very small money, using the either software or the crowd, can really improve and reduce both the cost and the increase environmental benefits to many of the industry that didn't have it until now. So that's mostly what I'm seeing in the market.
Sort of like marrying high-tech with low-tech or ICT with a clean-tech kind of a combination. One of the things you're raising here, which brings me to another topic on our agenda, is when we view the changes in the landscape, one of the ones that strike you is that in the last few years, like almost every company out there has nominated the chief innovation officer. And that didn't used to be the case until recently. So whether you're in beverages or railroads or utilities or any old economy company, there seems to be somebody out there whose mission is to reach out to innovation. So I guess the question to everybody on the panel, has this been affecting you? Have you seen any of that? Does that affect the way you take your companies to market or you finance them? Or doesn't change very much in your world?
If I can add on this, actually, I think in the cleantech space, this has been extremely important, this change. We are on an advisory board of the cleantech forum group. I used to be, with like 20 VCs and 3 corporates in the advisory board. Now, unfortunately, it's the opposite. Unfortunately, it's the opposite. So the VC number has gone down a lot, but the corporate number has gone up very, very significantly. The corporates are actually taking the place of many financial investors in the field and are giving a big boost. And of course, they are the ones that at the end of the day are going to buy the company. So it's an extremely positive development for us.
And it's actually, we didn't talk about that, but that's another shift. We're seeing that again, corporate investors. It's not only the cleantech sector, we're seeing it in other sectors. And it starts, because we're talking here about very early stage, successful entrepreneurs that they make money and they go back and they create new companies, we see that not only in Greece but also in the wider region. They start putting money. I'm coming from a corporate investor perspective in the US, and you see it more and more now than you used to see it, which is to a certain extent good, to a certain extent bad, but they're more strategic thinkers. They will have more patience than the normal US investor, as you said, because they want to achieve certain things, and that, I think, helps a little bit more the specific sectors. So that's another shift that we're seeing.
But I think in the past it used to be that if you had a strategic investor in one of your companies, it might influence negatively the ability to exit later on. So that's been the popular thinking. It looks like it's changed. You mentioned you have corporate members. So what has changed in that respect? Why are they welcome all of a sudden? Did they learn how to work with startups?
Because you think
Did we
they'll buy
learn
you.
how to work with them? Sorry?
Because a lot of times you think they will be the buyer.
Okay. And you're not affected by the fact that just being on the inside gives them an advantage?
Oh, I don't think it's
Or
a
a
good thing
conflict of
necessarily. Just saying I think that's a reason why people take corporate money is either for product reasons, relationship reasons, or they think ultimately we're not sure how many buyers there are for this and they're a potential buyer. It might not be the stated reason, but I think it's often the reason.
Maybe a comment on the strategic investors. I think with what we've seen, they also changed quite a bit. So they're much more experienced, much more straightforward about the way they are investing. They know they would not get a right of first refusal on the company. They know that this is a no-starter. The discussion doesn't even start there. And some of those entities, definitely if you look at the likes of EMC and Intel and GE and Cisco, I mean, they all have very professional corporate VCs. They are measured as almost as a VC investment to a large degree. And we had some good experiences with them. It's a very good exit, so we like to take them on.
I actually had experience on two levels with strategics. I mean, previous company I had, Onset Technology, raised money from Intel Capital back in 2000. They put $2 million into this. I think that was, not sure, but I think that's the lowest they could go actually investing in private companies. We now have in our crowd an umbrella agreement with GE that allows them to get to companies at a much, much lower ticket price under the same framework. So they sign once an agreement with us. They have visibility into any startup that we look at. They also help us, of course, with due diligence, because if GE is interested and say, if this grows up, we'll be a potential strategic investor, or a larger investor or a business partner here. But the framework allows them to, and that's the innovation center, allows them to really get with a 6-digit ticket into companies. So that's also another change. Those deals are now accessible to them, whereas before they could do just relatively large tickets.
So let me understand that you're working with one of the wealthiest companies on the planet, and you're saying we have a cheap deal for you here? How does?
Yes, because the deal itself,
Sorry,
this is exactly
I
the
can't
point.
resist
This
yeah.
is exactly the point of controlling. I mean, at the level that we enter the company, let's say the whole round is $1 million or $2 million. You don't necessarily want someone strategic to come and take the whole round at $2 million, color the company completely as GE or whatever.
And they don't have specific rights associated?
No specific rights. They enter under the same SPV, just like any other investors. They get the deal, they see the deal flow, they get the initial visibility into innovation in the hope that something will actually be interesting when the round is 10 million. So the company doesn't face all those, I'm now, and that's with GE. There's another actually energy-related very large company that will announce soon the same type of relationship. So the fact that we can get small amounts of money from them very early on means that all those no special rights thing is doable.
I'll just see actually that some of these corporate investors, because of working like professional VCs, they're also investing in diversified sectors, not necessarily only on their sector. So they're seeing it also as a financial interest as well.
I was going to say that my view is maybe a little bit different, but my view is that most of the time, it's not good. It's actually most of the time not good. It's not good both for the startup and for the strategic. Back in the day, strategic investors would set up corporate funds because they weren't able to acquire companies. They were missing them. Somebody else was acquiring them before they knew about it, let alone before they could bid or how they outbid. So they set up corporate funds. They staffed them with non-venture capitalists, with executives. And they said, well, we'll invest and we'll get all kinds of rights, like right of first refusal or right of notice or something else, or even a board seat, and we'll know what's going on. And if we're interested, and we may very well be interested, we'll have an advantage and we'll be able to acquire the company. And as it happens in Israel at the time, this is before we had our wave of M&A, it was perfect. Now we were bringing strategic acquirers into the company, a direct relationship. What could be better? They're invested. Why would they invest or buy somebody else? Who cares if they get a little bit of the company for cheap? It still guarantees some kind of an exit in the future. But as it turns out, that doesn't work out that way. Although if you look back in kind of all the press releases of acquisitions in 2000, 2001, 2009, you'll see a lot of the corporate acquisitions, they were buying 95% of the company they didn't already own. Things like that. You'll see it over and over and over again. That doesn't really happen that much anymore. There are on occasion situations like that, but most of the time it doesn't happen, and that's actually not such a bad thing. I think when it makes sense is when a large corporate and a startup have something in common, they're not sure what, they want to get to know each other or they want to get to know the fields, and that's okay. And in those kind of situations, we try to limit both the capital invested, certainly the rights, definitely no board seat, all of the above. We also try and bring in multiple strategics so that you're not painted in any one particular color, which is a very dangerous thing. But as Gadi mentioned, the flip side is that corporate investors have become more sophisticated. They lost so much money in the past. I think the only investor that made money was Intel, and it was because of one investment. But overall, they've mostly lost money over the years. They realize they have to staff it with quasi-venture capitalists, if not proper venture capitalists, who are compensated based on the financial results, not on some obscure strategic value. And that they understand they have to play the game that we all play by the same rules, which is they don't get different rights. They have to participate in the future and help the company as we do. Otherwise, they don't have a place at the table the next time around. So while Israel is, in my view, somewhat still dependent on strategic investors, just from a capital perspective, they don't usually delineate that when they talk about the surveys of how much foreign capital comes into the country, but a lot of it is actually strategic. I think that startups and the investor community are also more sophisticated, being a little bit careful about letting the wolf into the henhouse.
Yeah, I differ to a limited degree. I think what was said here that is true for the sophisticated financial ecosystem as the U.S. Here in Israel, as you indicated, we have a less sophisticated system and a less developed financial system. As a matter of fact, a real lack of capital for A and B rounds. Just from our experience, my last 3 exits, whether it was Design Art, Waze, and Onavo, in all 3 cases, in the B round, the investors were strategic investors, and not one. And the best thing is when you don't bring only one investor in a round with several of judge. Currently, 3 of my companies are going through B rounds, and again, the bulk of the investments are multiple strategic investors, and this is true for the Israeli ecosystem. And we're really hurting on the B rounds, and it's just it's a vacuum. They're getting into a vacuum here, and if there were other alternatives, I would agree with you that maybe most probably would have chosen